Morning, everybody. Are sports card investors dumb for getting out of the sports card hobby now? Dustin, why are you calling me dumb? Are you calling me dumb? More or less just trying to get your attention, and you're here. So while you're here, let's talk about it. Hello to all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. It's another day. We're coming off of a New Orleans Saints victory, so it is a nice little Monday. Got the day off, haven't showered yet, but we're just going to roll with it. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. If you want the daily sports card hobby news type stuff, we're going to talk about cards and all sorts of different subjects on the matter. Hobby stuff, hit the big red button down below. Also connect with me on IG. I share a lot of my pickups, a lot of my cards, collectibles, style pickups on IG, so check me out there. And I'm also blasting out tweets on occasion, especially when the Saints are getting ripped off by the referees. Be aware that I will be firing off some tweets. Also, big thanks to channel partner ComC.com, your home for buying, selling, and flipping all the hottest trading cards. Their consignment marketplace is home to over 29 million cards across all sports, genres, and eras. With a ComC.com account, you can purchase cards from different sellers over time, ship them home together later, or immediately reprice them for sale on the ComC marketplace. Check it out. It's a good time. All right, guys, first let's define what I'm talking about by sports card investor or investors. And no, I don't think you're dumb. Traditionally, when we're talking about investing or investors, we're talking about long-term holds, really. I mean, yes, you've got short-term stuff and prospecting, but that's really in the flipping, speculating type stuff. Now, are we doing a little bit of all of that stuff? Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm talking about long-term folks. So I'm talking about people that are looking at the card space and specific cards over the long haul, over the long term. Might be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, whatever. You're a believer in the space, in the market, in the hobby as a store of value over time. Are cards going to pay you a dividend? No. Are they going to pay you rent for living in your house? No, but damn, that'd be kind of cool if they did. But they can be considered a store of value in the same way that other asset classes are. Jeff Wilson of Sports Card Investor did a episode yesterday, I believe. I thought that it was really good. Jeff gets a lot of heat for being ultra positive. And look, he's pretty biased in the market in the sense that he runs a business in the hobby. So he's a hobbyist, but he's also running a business that is reliant on a strong hobby. It's reliant on a strong market. It is a data tool. And so he gets a lot of criticism as far as, just, oh my God, this guy just only sees like the cherry and the sprinkles and the strawberry shortcake and all that stuff. And he doesn't talk about a lot of those negative things. He doesn't point those out. Well, yesterday's video I thought was good in that he did talk about the realities. He talked about the realities of the world, but then he also put kind of a positive spin on it. And I do agree with a lot of the takes that he had. But the main thing I want to drill down on is just kind of the mentality around buying, selling, investing. And a lot of times folks are investing when something is red hot, as we have done over the last few years. I mean, the reality is if you're buying in at something at all-time highs or kind of creeping up on all-time highs, it's probably not a great time, frankly. It's probably too late. Unless it is something in collectibles where it's just mega scarce and you just don't see them. And you believe even though you're paying kind of at that premium, hey, I'm going to have this thing for 10, 15, 20 years. And over time, I'm going to do fine on this. There's so much talk around, the market being down in the short run in the big crash. And that is absolutely true. A lot of cards have sunk mightily in value. And frankly, a lot of cards probably will continue to do so over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. Some cards will frankly go to zero, but that's something that is always the case, regardless of the market. If players just don't work out, if you have a mega bust, Jamarcus Russell, whatever type player, then that stuff's going to go to zero regardless of any other market factors. With sports cards, collectibles, but especially when it relates to an athlete's career, you've got a special kind of risk attached to it. Not only do you have to figure out the right card of that player, but the actual player has to work out. And then you've got, Hall of Famers. There's a lot of talk of like, well, maybe we just kind of move into proven players. I do this too, where I'm buying into Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Tom Brady's still kind of expensive, but we'll see how that goes over the next 12 months. But even with proven players, look at Brett Favre. Brett Favre is a perfect example of a player that is a proven Hall of Famer. He put together an amazing career for one of the most beloved organizations in the NFL and really globally in the Green Bay Packers. Now he's involved, 10, 15 years later in some welfare scandal, and his cards, we'll have to see what happens with his cards over time. Maybe they hold up because of his career, or maybe it's not good, and maybe it just crumbles. We don't really know. And I think that that's something that is always a risk. And so going back to the point of, look, we've had kind of all-time highs over the last couple of years. The people that really made out, that really kind of made a lot of money over the last few years were people that were already that already got into the market. And maybe they kind of accidentally fell into it. I did. I was buying cards in 2018 into 2019 before kind of the mega boom. And, it wasn't because I was some savvy investor. I was just getting into some stuff where I was like, man, these are kind of, these are cool cards that I'd love to own. I think they've got some upside. Had no idea of the actual upside that happened, but that's the whole point, for you to make kind of these massive gains. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about cards, crypto, stocks, real estate. If you buy a piece of property out there in the middle of nowhere and then Walmart calls and is like, hey, we want to build on your land. Here's X amount of dollars. You just kind of fell into something. It happens, with the stock, with a particular company. Oh man, I kind of like this small company. What's the name of it? Uber. Okay. Yeah. It sounds kind of cool. You buy in and then boom, it explodes. Now, does that happen often? No, that doesn't happen often. That's part of the speculation part. So the investing and speculating piece is all wrapped together, whether folks like to believe it or not. All traditional investments pay dividends, and there's different things. You're buying into a company that's actually making revenue and all that stuff. That's fine, but you are still speculating on the price of the share or the price of the property or the price of the alternative asset. And the hope is that you're buying low and eventually selling high down the road. If you're a collector of collectibles, obviously, look, I've got certain stuff here that I'm not going to make some massive amount of money down the road, and that's okay. So you can differentiate between the two to where you're collecting certain things and then you're an investor, you're buying into other things that you're like, hey, I think this has got potential down the line. I'm going to hold on to this. So as Jeff Wilson had mentioned, there is a lot of fear in the market. He went to Industry Summit. I didn't go. And frankly, for him to actually come back and say that there was some, unease there really had to be, because this is a guy that he's very optimistic. He's just an overall optimistic guy. And so I do believe that there are breakers and card shops and all these folks that are nervous right now trying to figure out what's going on with Panini, Topps, all this stuff, Fanatics. But really, the uneasiness is where all the money is made. If you go back to 2008, we've talked about this, financial markets crashing. Warren Buffett made a truckload of money during the financial crash. He bought into Bank of America at like pennies compared to where it's at, and he makes big moves on companies. Coca-Cola. I think he put $1 billion into Coca-Cola in 1987, 1988 after Black Monday, when that stock crashed, because he believed in the company, the ownership and all that stuff. And he's done very well on that. And he just has, he has a lot of chips to push in on companies that he likes, and that's kind of where it's at. Now about 50% of Berkshire Hathaway sits in Apple, in one company, which is interesting, right? And so moral of the story is, this is or is coming, or whatever you want to say, is a buying opportunity as these prices sink and sink. If you are a believer in the overall market space, which I think a lot of people, if you've been buying in here over the last few years, over the long haul, I'm not talking about buying a card and flipping it a week later. That's a different that's more like trading. You're trading, you're spinning, you're churning, and you're trading cards. That's different. I'm not talking about that. I've also heard a lot of prices will never get back to where they were at the peak of 2020 or 2021. You don't really know that. You don't know that. I think a lot of cards will get back to that point, but with the caveat of we just don't know when. So it might get back to that price, But is it going to be 5 years? Is it going to be 10 years? Is it going to be 30 years down the road where it gets back to the 2021 price? Maybe. But if it takes 20 years to get back to the 2021 price, given the amount of gains over that small section of time, would that be terrible? I mean, would that be awful? I don't know. I guess we would have to stack it up against other asset classes and everything, but that's kind of the fun of it, right? That's kind of the fun of all of this. People aren't in cards because it is comparable to traditional investments, and traditional investments have their own flair. People are buying and selling, holding cards because that's fun. You know, that's kind of the fun part of it. It's the collecting and the investing all wrapped into one. So guys, what do you think? Are people crazy? Are they dumb to be getting out of the sports card hobby now when prices are finally moving south? Even on wax, you know, prices are finally moving downward. Is now kind of the beginning of the time of there being some really nice buying opportunities over the next 12 months. For me, that's kind of my belief. I think the next 12 months are going to present some really nice opportunities. Personally, for me, yes, I'm going to be buying cards consistently as we move forward, but I'm very excited about summer 2023 as we move into the national. Because generally speaking, summer is a good time to buy sports cards anyway. Prices kind of sink a little bit. People are going on vacation. Summer, you know, no sports. Summer is a good buying time for sports cards historically. And then you got the national coming up there. What is that going to look like? Are dealers going to bring prices down? I'm very excited for opportunities summer of 2023 as we move into the national. But let me know your thoughts, guys. Are you kind of doubling, tripling down? Are you holding off? And that's the other thing I think to the caveat to all of this is, do you have disposable income? Do you have an emergency savings account? These are all things that you want to have in place before even kind of getting into any type of investing. So I would like to hear your thoughts on this. And I also am going to hear, I know from the people that are like, this is not an investment, blah, blah, blah. That's totally fine. I invested in a cheeseburger yesterday. It was delicious. Guys, let me know your thoughts. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.